Bringing home your first baby brings uncomplicated, unhindered joy and attention. Life is surrounded around that human being. You can hold him as long as you want, coo, coddle, dote over, take as many pictures as you have time for. The only competition is between you, your spouse, and grandparents as to who will hold him the most and first, or who's going to get up at 3 a.m. and feed him. Ha, like that ever happens. Then one day, your jaw drops in shock. You're horrified, embarrassed, and downright scared when you begin nursing your second-born, and that firstborn with whom you spent every hour of every day caring for and loving for the past 2 years angrily demands, "Don't feed her. Send her back. I don't want her." How can children be siblings by fate and friends by choice? Let's talk about it today on Live with Tricia.
Welcome to Season 1, Keeping It Real on Live with Tricia, your innovative platform that's been recorded before a live online studio audience. As a seasoned mama of 7 grown children, a grandma, award-winning actor, director, author, and entrepreneur, Tricia Harmon inspires, challenges, and cracks herself up just by keeping it real. Get ready to engage with Tricia and her amazing guest host, Michelle Crumbach, for the next 30-ish minutes in innovative and authentic conversation for leaders desiring inspirational perspective, purpose, and laughter in between tears.
Welcome to Live with Tricia. You know, learning how to be siblings by fate and friends by choice is quite an art and quite a science. There's a lot involved behind it. Me growing up, I am a middle child. I have an older brother and a younger sister, and there's something about the dynamics in that relationship that are a little different than what I had. I had 7 children, 11 pregnancies, but 7 character builders here on earth that have honed me and have learned how to get along with each other and become real friends. So I want to talk about what I've learned. I'm not an expert at this by any stretch of the imagination. I do have a few pointers from my failures and a few tips from the triumphs that I've had as well. So I hope it encourages you. I hope you can take something along the way and pass it on. Just a little nugget to put back in your brain and get it watered and nurtured next time you have a conversation like this. But have you ever noticed that, you know, if you have more than one child, you've probably had this said to you. And it's probably said out of a spirit of jealousy, fear, displacement, or fear of replacement. And so, you know, having 7 children, it just changed our entire lives. And what's interesting is that every time another one was added, everything changed all over again. And so just when you think you've got it worked out and you got it all together, it's like, wait, what? How do we handle this? How do we maneuver this? How do we juggle it? How do we make it work? And so we're going to learn some tips along the way, but also understand that once you get on the other side of that, like I am, and you have one at a time leaving the home, then you also have some changes going on in the home life as well. So we'll talk about that and how you can pair up between birth orders and personalities and see some get along with others and some not. And you know exactly who not to leave with the babysitter at the same time. You know, as we think about all the things that a toddler is going through, or maybe even a young child who is entering into a blended family, and now all of a sudden they have a total disruption of birth orders. Maybe there's the loss of a child, and now that person is not there. There are so many dynamics that affect the sibling union and the friendship levels that are there. In our family, we have 7 children. We have 5 girls and 2 boys in my family, but now I'm part of a blended family where we have 6 girls and 3 boys. But when we blended, most of them were grown, most of them were just finishing up school, or already out, already married, maybe one had children already. And so even in that, trying to help siblings who are bonus siblings, that's pretty cool thought as well. rather than calling them step siblings, you can call them bonus siblings, because it really is a bonus. It's a blessing. And learning how to navigate through that with grace and understanding is a real key component to helping siblings become friends by choice. So whether you're a parent, a guardian, a grandparent, raising up children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, it is a privilege and it is a responsibility. And once we recognize that, we can kind of move along. So today, I want to just encourage you along the way and offer you some tips on how to encourage friendship with your siblings or for your children as they are siblings. And some of these are coming by way of just sheer experience and trial and error in my own. And some of them I've picked up along the way from Pinterest or the web, and just little ideas that I thought, those are great ideas. So nothing real rigid here, nothing cut and dry. This is not going to guarantee success, but you can try it. And if it doesn't work for you, that's all right. Try something else. Do what works and what is your parenting style, or what is your personality and love language and all those kinds of things. So thanks for joining me. Let's get started. You know, as Mary Beth was receiving Kayla into our home, our oldest receiving Kayla, we did hear those words. Those words are not just make-up words. I literally was nursing KK, is what we affectionately call her, and Mary Beth just stood there, stared at her, and with no shame, with no reserve, don't feed her. I don't like her. Send her back. Those came out of her mouth. I was horrified. I was embarrassed. I was like, what kind of a child are you? I didn't understand any of those issues, and I really was not prepared. So here's some things that I've learned along the way and have continually done as we had more children, in helping them get the buy-in factor and helping them grow in their relationship. One idea is this: it's really a special treat when that sibling comes to the hospital or sees the baby for the first time, to have a gift ready for the sibling from the baby. It's a way of saying, I love you already. And maybe it's just a toy that's age appropriate for them, something that they will cherish and bond with. And so what a great idea for a sibling to get a gift from their baby brother or sister. How cool is that? How about maybe scheduling some bonding time with that sibling so that you don't make it all about the baby. Maybe you can help that sibling bond with the baby by allowing them to hold the baby. I know my that firstborn usually is pretty responsible and a leader, and they seem like they got this, but you're almost terrified as well, because if there is any kind of rejection or animosity, we already saw in the video, if you are on live earlier, you need to start coming on live, because I show these snippets beforehand just to give you some laughter in between your tears and get you set up for what we're doing. So some of those video clips were hilarious, because that they were like not wanting anything to do with it, or they were just doing it out of obligation, like a nice little hug and like, get out of here. So anyway, having time with that sibling to be able to take responsibility, take ownership of that baby is pretty important. Letting them care for her, maybe even while you're nursing or bottle feeding, whatever you're doing, have that sibling sit down next to you and have like a real style doll for them, a lifestyle baby for them, and give them a bottle and let them kind of mimic you and role play with you, and have them right next to you doing that together, especially if you have a girl. Obviously that works well, but you for sure can do this with boys. They could be spoon feeding their baby, they could be making mud pies for their baby, they can do whatever little boys want to do. Just have them do it with their action figures or a doll or a pet dog, maybe the dog, dress up the dog, get creative. Don't lock in and get stereotypical about it. Make it all about that sibling and how that sibling can incorporate into that relationship. How about this idea? What if you were to hire a babysitter to care for your infant once a week, just for an hour, or maybe 2 hours at the most, giving you time to have alone time with the sibling, making it all about that sibling, maybe taking them out for a special meal, ice cream, or some kind of treat that they love, maybe taking them to the dollar store. And, you know, one thing that we did in our family was my kids had date days with their daddy, and he would take them out one at a time, once a month, and let them pick anything they wanted from the dollar store. That was a genius move because we didn't have a whole lot of money, and the kids felt like, wow, I can choose anything. And honestly, it was only 1 or 2 things that they wanted. So don't underestimate your kids, and using that time to bond with them all by themselves is going to make them feel much more secure and stable in the whole process. Also, I love this one, and this is one that I had to learn to be intentional about. Even though I'm an encourager and I love praising and affirming, but intentionally doing that, acknowledging, appreciating, and affirming the siblings and the value of them in our relationship is huge. Little trips on a regular basis really pay off, and this is when you can take that time to do it, but letting them know what a value they are. And I just can't imagine life without you. And you bring so much to our family, your joy, your giggles, your helps. Just find attributes, character qualities, and things that you can affirm your little one with. And it will be a great way of boosting them and encouraging them to maybe give a little bit more. How about allowing your sibling to express their feelings, even if they're not that nice? Like what Mary Beth said. Giving them permission to be honest and transparent and authentic and doing it in an honest and a healthy way is really key to your child knowing that they're understood because they're being heard, and you validate those feelings. So take time, enter in, and understand the root cause in order to speak truth and purpose and blessing into what they're feeling. So there's a few. How about you? Any suggestions or comments about what we've shared? What do you think about what we've shared so far? If you are listening or watching this, please share a comment below and share your experience. Tell us what works for you or what didn't work. I want to take a minute and just acknowledge and appreciate our sponsors. Today's program, Live with Tricia, is underwritten by Noble Pearls Media, where Christian creatives influence culture by representing leaders in media, ministry, and the public eye. For your production needs, contact Noble Pearls Ministry at gmail.com. And I want to thank those who have underwritten. I so appreciate your support. This is a listener, viewer supported broadcast. And so if you want to become an investor, a partner with us, hop on over to Live with Tricia /partners. Take a look at all the levels that you can give and how often you might want to give. Choose your level, choose your incentives. We give back to those who give, and so we appreciate that. Also, I just want to let you know that my first book is going to be released in September, and so everybody who is on the online live studio audience will be receiving a free copy of Sand to Pearls, Navigating and Transforming the Sabotaging and Negative Dialogue Stuck Between Our Ears. If you would like a copy, please let me know. You can get a hold of me at info@livewithtricia.com. Alrighty, so let's continue on and talk about what about when they get into the adolescent and teen years? How about those years where life is changing at a breathtaking pace? You know, for me, I had 7 children over a span of a lot of years. I had 11 pregnancies. So I started in my early 20s, but I didn't have my last baby until I was 40 years old. There was a 16-year gap in between our oldest and our youngest. Can you imagine? I mean, honestly, for me, just between you, me, and the fence post, I think Mary Beth was kind of concerned that if I kept having babies, she might get married and we'd both be nursing babies in Sunday school. Isn't that a thought? I'm looking at Cameron because he's cracking up over here. Cameron McCormick is our videographer. He is crushing it, and I am so grateful for him to be recording this as well. But really, honestly, it is a very delicate dance when you have adolescents and you're still bringing in other siblings, but also when they are trying to grow together as a tribe and learn how to thrive in the very various milestones of their lives, whether it's hormonal or experiential. There are a lot of things that can happen in a family that can change the dynamics very, very quickly. And there are people who will rise to the top. There are people who will rebel. There are people who are going to be compliant. There are people going to resist. So how do you navigate through all of that, especially if they are adolescents and teens? Here's a few things I just want to throw out, not because I've done it well again, but because I'm learning what works and what didn't serve me well. So here's one idea. Love your teenager, not just in words, but in action and in truth. It is so important for us to not just say, I love you, but to demonstrate it through our attitude, through our actions. And that's a real biblical verse right there. It says, love not in word and in tongue, but in deed and in truth. So take that to the bank. You can also respect your teen privately and publicly. This is huge, especially if you have a personality that's sarcastic, critical, condescending. If you're a jokester and a prankster, it is really, really a fine line as to how far you go. And I kind of felt like when my kids were young, I have some kids who are the comedians. They are quick-witted, and they just, it doesn't matter where we are, they just have a wit and a comeback, and it cracks us up. But I had to learn where to draw the line, where it was making fun of somebody at their expense. It's one thing when we're laughing with each other, but it's another thing when we're laughing at each other. And so when you have adolescents and they are so sensitive and so tender-hearted and impressionable, it's really, really important to make sure that you are respecting them, not just in what you say and your attitude, but also their privacy. Respect their privacy. And it doesn't matter how old they are. There are some kids who are more private than others. I have kids who are more private than others. They don't want everything shared on social media. I'm still learning that even now, that, you know, my kids, just because they share something special with me doesn't mean they want it broadcast all over the world or all over my friends' world. And so learning how to respect and value your teen is privately and publicly. Don't shame them in front of their friends. Don't criticize them. Don't start attacking or bringing up past failures or past issues in front of their friends. That's just a no-win situation. If you really want the heart of your child, respect them. Here's another one. This is huge. Have clear rules based on love, protection, and honor for self and others. Clear rules based on love, protection, and honor for themselves and for others. Man was not made for the law. The law was made for man. That's what I'm trying to say right there. Because when we get it backwards and we start making rules just to manage people, just to manipulate our world so that it's convenient for us, we're stepping all over the rights of others. So does that make sense to anybody? Can I get a thumbs up if I was able to express that clearly? I appreciate that. So having clear rules based on love, protection, honor, and for self and others. No one, and this goes along with the not criticizing them in public. Don't provoke your children to anger. Don't get all up in their face, being authoritative and demanding and like, you know, just because I said so kind of thing. I have never won when I have said because I said so. That doesn't go well. So provoking my children to wrath is a way of goading them. Like, go ahead, I dare you, you know, and testing them and teasing them, ridiculing them, that kind of stuff, that will provoke them to anger, and that will prevent them from having a heart for you. And so your whole idea of a parent when you are working with teenagers, I hope, is to win their heart and keep their heart. Because if you lose their hearts in adolescence, it's going to be a long road. And it's not going to be loving them in the best way that they need when they get out there in the world. So I don't mean to come down so hard, but I know from my own mistakes that provoking your children to wrath is a no-win situation. How about expect immediate obedience in time? This was a huge one. We had a song. We had songs for everything because we were a singing family. We were called the Von Trapp family and kind of came by it naturally. But we had songs about obedience. And I kind of had a threefold expectation of obedience right away, all the way with joyfulness. And that just meant that in time, if I gave you a heads up, if I told you 5-minute warning, 2-minute warning, or if I said immediately, like you don't have time, I don't want you delaying because you're about to get hurt, you're about to hurt somebody else, something bad's going to happen, or I just need to go and, you know, we have to get out the door, something like that. So there's a level of immediate obedience in time that you can place on your children. I am not a proponent of giving them 3 seconds to disobey me. I don't count 1, 2, 3 so that they can sit there and then get up on 3. If they're not moving on 1, then they're undone because I don't want them to begrudgingly obey me because the second fold is all the way with joyfulness. That's second and third. All the way with joyfulness means that they're doing it 100%, wholeheartedly. They're doing it as unto the Lord. That's what we want to train them to do anyway, right? They're not going to answer to us for the rest of their lives. They're ultimately going to answer to the Lord. They're going to answer to their boss. They're going to answer to the government, the police, the courts, you name it. So we need to train them to obey all the way. And then the attitude is the cream on top with the cherry. It is how we do it. Joyfulness, thankfulness, with a honoring and respectful attitude. So that's a huge one right there. And that can take some time, but I guarantee if you spend 30 days just helping your child learn how to expect to obey right away, all the way with joyfulness, you'll have a transformed child in maybe even 5. Kevin Lehman has a great book on that, How to Have a New Child in 5 Days. And I don't know if that's the right title, but something like that. So look up Kevin Lehman. That is a great resource. Encourage your children to think critically in conversations. You know, it is amazing how they just spit out what they've been taught. They just answer to the test. And so when we help them think critically and be able to express that in a conversation, we are able to dive in and see their heart in a whole new way. And they're able to express themselves in a whole new way as well. So encouraging critical thinking is a huge one. Obviously, this is a no-brainer. Be a good role model. Do what you would expect them to do towards your siblings, towards other people, and just be that great role model. Pass on your relationship with God to them. Make sure that they know why they're doing what they're doing. And it's ultimately to honor God and to get along with God. How about this one? Acknowledge, appreciate, and affirm their good actions and character. I've talked about this a couple times, even in other episodes, but verbally, maybe writing them a card, sending them a little video, something special that really speaks to them and affirms them, appreciates them, and acknowledges the value that they are in your life. You can do this with your siblings. This is a huge way to encourage each other as you grow up too, especially as teens. That is such a huge, vital bonding thing. Another thing that is really hard for a lot of us, me included, is humbling ourselves and acknowledging our faults, our mistakes, and our sins through a repentive, forgiving spirit. Seeking forgiveness, extending forgiveness, receiving forgiveness, all those are components to making sure that we humble ourselves and acknowledge our faults. Because I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to be transparent and honest and authentic with somebody than it is to be right. I hope this is making sense to you. I have a couple more, and I just want to wrap this up real quick. How about this one? Forgiving quickly, refusing to use their past sins, mistakes, and failures against them. Because what you do with them, they will do unto others. And using their past failures, sins, and mistakes will just resurrect a whole new spirit of grief, guilt, regret, and they don't know what to do with that. So being able to forgive quickly, put it behind you. This is one of the key components to having siblings who get along with each other, to raising siblings who will get along with each other. If you forgive them and stop using that against them, they will know the premise on how to have a great relationship with others. And the last one is protect, proclaim blessings, and provide spirituality through prayer. Being able to pray over your children, protecting them with prayer. You know, there's a man in scripture, his name was Job. He had 10 kids, and this man was the most wealthiest, well-respected, honored man in all the region. He would, on a yearly basis, take 10 bullocks for each one of his children, and he would venture off with his men servants, and he would go up to the place of sacrifice, and he would sacrifice one bull for each child. Why? Because he wanted to protect them, and he was wanting to provide and bless them. Not because they were rebellious, defiant, rebel rousers. They were fellowshipping in each other's homes that entire week that he did this. In fact, it was so cool because all the brothers were the ones who hosted all the parties, all the feast, all the dinners. And then they would all gather back to Mama's house at the end and all have this great feast and fellowship together. How did that happen? Because Job was intentional, protective, and providing blessing over his kids. Per adventure, they cursed God in their heart. So take that proactive lesson from Job. Make sure you are praying over your children, blessing them in prayer, protecting them in prayer, and providing that spiritual covering for them so that they can thrive in their tribe. All righty, let me throw this back at you. What do you consider to be good rules for teenagers? I would love to hear your comments or see them in the text box. As we enter into our last section here, I want to pass something along with you that'll encourage you and equip you on how to resolve conflict. You know, managing conflict is one thing, but being able to resolve it is another. So I'd like to give you a sneak peek of one of my upcoming books called Learning to Play Nice in the Sandbox, 7 Strategies for Overcoming Conflict. And being able to do that in your family is a huge gift. So I will give you that download link in the show notes as well as to my live studio audience. But let me just kind of walk through some of the things that have to do with how do you play nice in the sandbox, because there are a couple times where I've had to do some unorthodox things in my house. One of them is when my kids would bicker and fight with each other, if they said unkind things to each other, I would take their right to talk away. I would call a moratorium, like no more talking. And there was peace in the house and nobody could talk because there was so much strife going on. So that's one of the things that I did. Another thing is if they hit each other, I took their right to use their hands away. I would put socks on their hands to remind them. And for the next half hour, depending on how old they were, it was age appropriate, but they weren't allowed to use their hands for anything. I based this on a scripture verse, not that I'm legalistic about it, but I just based it on if your eye offends you, pluck it out. If your hand offends you, put it aside. It's kind of like, you know what, sometimes you just have to give up the right to use the thing that you're using to hurt others. That was my premise behind the whole thing. And one thing that I did that I will never forget is when they were bickering and there was strife and contention in the home, I would have, it was usually my 2 daughters, I would have them stand nose to nose and hold hands, and they had to stand there and say 10 nice things about each other. Now they couldn't just say, I like your hair, or you have nice teeth, or something, you know, really surface. They had to really think about 10 nice things that they really liked about each other, that they appreciated about each other. And I tell you what, when you are in an age range of 4 to 7, maybe even 8, up to 10 maybe, and you're doing that, their giggle fest starts really, really fast. So it was fun and it didn't last long. There are other remedies that you can do. One thing that we did was a roundtable session. And in this PDF that I'm going to send you, you're going to have step-by-step how to go around the table and make sure that everyone is valued, validated, and heard by listening to their point of view, their perspective, and dealing with it in a full circle kind of way. So take a look at that PDF. If you'd like more information, please inbox me. I would love to share more with you. I would love to hear how this has made a difference in your life right now. What are some things that you can take away from this and begin utilizing, especially if you are even now at a grandparent stage? How can you encourage this in your grandchildren? Our grandchildren are 2 time zones away. We have another one coming the end of this year. And so I'm looking forward to being able to implement this from a whole new perspective, because let me tell you, I think it's a whole lot easier to raise grandkids than it was my own kids. I am so excited to be a grandparent and have this do-over opportunity, because I didn't get it right the first time. I love my children to the, as high as the sun is in the sky and back again, and I would take a bullet for them. But there's something about grandbabies that just gives us the freedom, gives us that liberty to be a little bit more gracious, enter into it from a different perspective. So if you're a grandparent, or you know of a grandparent who can utilize this and would love to have it, please let me know. I'd love to pass it on to you. Alrighty, I'm looking for any more comments. Feel free to leave them in the chat box. Feel free to leave them in the comments below on your podcast or webcast link. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm live with Tricia, and this is a production of Noble Pearls Media. Thank you for listening and watching to episode 4. Make sure you're getting notifications so you don't miss next week's episode. Proud to be a Polak. I am proud to be a Polak, embracing our nationality and heritage. Join us back here on Live with Tricia, where together we laugh in between tears, because after all, laughter is the best medicine.
Wasn't that a great episode of Live with Tricia? Be sure now to follow, share, and please leave a comment on our social media platforms using the handle Live with Tricia. You can make more seasons and episodes possible. Become a cheerful giver. Choose your level of giving and experience the joy at livewithtricia.com/partners. Let us know how this is encouraging, equipping, and strengthening you in your daily walk. Have a suggestion? Drop us a line. info@livewithtricia.com. Join us next week for another amazing episode of Live with Tricia, where together we learn to laugh in between tears. Because after all, laughter truly is the best medicine. So go ahead, over-medicate yourself with it today. I'm Misty. Thank you for joining us.